Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
719, me?
Yep, that's you. You're live. What's happening, man?
Hey, Ben, my name is Luke.
Luke.
Really quick, I just really like your show. I've been
Thanks,
listening
man.
for a while now. This is actually the first time I'm listening live because I normally listen to it the day after.
Glad to have you on board, man. What's happening?
What I really quickly wanted to touch on, especially leaping off of what you were just talking about with intersectional feminism, and I think this kind of nicely jumps off of what Michael was saying earlier, is this sort of reality that it's sort of when a lot of people I speak with use the term white feminism to sort of front this narrative that there's like the more privileged class sort of buying into the patriarchy rather than we have this sort of like broader based capacity to acknowledge the fact that there's so many extremely poor women and disproportionately women of color who are suffering extremely. And, you know, there's this great concern on my end when we're talking about this, even though I wouldn't question Hillary's history in terms of fighting for women's rights as far as, you know, women's right to choose and things like that. I think she's been an amazing voice in that arena. But I have a concern when it's, you know, you have the Gloria Steinems of the world and you have Madeleine Albrights of the world coming in upholding this sort of powerful message that really is only reaching this rich class of white women, and upholding them to sort of be a part, you know, to like the establishment moniker, sort of that idea. So it's interesting that, you know, the terms of the conversation always hinge along the lowest hanging fruit in terms of what it is that we're seeking to do on this intersectionality. Right.
And actually you unpacked it right in the middle of what you were saying was actually the key, is that it's this willingness to be intersectional up until the point when we have a conversation about economics. Right. We're not going to parse the conversation. Fine. We'll be intersectional when it comes to women of color. And they're only, you know, that's a ongoing fight. That fight isn't even over, right? You still have that standard erasure of the unique plight that women of color have as opposed to any other type of woman, right? And it would be great if we had, you know, I'm sure Anoa is waiting in the wind. Anoa Changa, my Progressive Army sister, I'm sure she's waiting in the wind to come in and to address this succinctly as a woman, right? But just through observation, everything that you said is true, except the fact that we're not going to discuss, you can't complete the conversation about intersectionality unless you talk about the unique situation that poor women have, that poor women of color have, that poor transgender women of color have. You know, there is a class dimension to every experience in America. And whether let's put feminism aside, because neither one of us are men, even though we have a decent understanding of intersectional feminism. Let's put it aside that we're men. We're not qualified to talk about it. I can talk about it in the sense of race, and you can talk about it in the sense of race. In the sense of race, for me, there's a completely different experience if you are a black person in America who has extreme wealth. I cannot go to certain neighborhoods, and there are black people who live in those neighborhoods. I cannot go there because I am not in the right wealth category. I can drive through, but I better keep driving, right? So there is a different experience in America, and that we have to erase that dimension of economics and class if we are going to support Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton only wants to take that conversation so far. She does not want to have a full-fledged conversation about class and class analysis, because that is going to require her to turn coat on some of her top supporters, which is Wall Street. Hey, Luke, man, thanks so much for your call. I got to grab the rest of these calls.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. 857-600-0518. I actually just missed a couple. I want to play this from, and no, listen, just to be clear, I'm not a woman. I am not an expert on feminism by any measure of the imagination. I don't pretend to be able to speak on it, but I do have quite a bit of knowledge on the different experiences that you can have in America, regardless of your particular identity. And I know that my experience in America as a black man is uniquely different than an experience of an America of a black woman. But I also know that a black woman who's in the top 1% or in the top 25% has a different experience than I do. And so if you understand and you look through the world through those lenses, that just because we have the same gender, just because we have the same skin color, just because we have the same political affiliation, doesn't mean that we can talk about each other as a monolith, because all of us have different experiences. And the erasure that happens, that must happen for you to be able to support Hillary Clinton, is the erasure of class. And we normally wouldn't be able to say that if it was just Hillary Clinton versus a Martin O'Malley, because both of them erase class. But it's Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders brings a unique perspective on the conversation of class analysis in America. And so now we rightfully so can critique Hillary Clinton and say that her policies on race, her policies on economics, her policies on feminism, her policies on LGBT rights, they pale in comparison when we break it down based on the dimension of class. And thankfully, we have Bernie Sanders to thank for that. Otherwise, we would be just talking the same exact conversation without any reference to class whatsoever. All right, let me grab this call. I'm going to place you on hold while I talk about Tana.